So far we have seen run through the history of AI from very promising beginnings in the 1950s already, so 70 years ago. Promising because they held lots of possibilities, but also because many promises were made to a certain age of golden age in the 60s and 70s, where many advances were produced in the discipline of how would we teach computers to think, how we would teach intelligence to them, but also in related areas like computer vision or robotics, to the reality that it was not possible to live up to that hype. Computers eventually learned to play chess better than humans, but it was way later than had originally been touted, been promised, or probably we still don't have a computer that has the intelligence of a human being, which led to a certain disappointment and then cutting of funds, and finally to a certain sobriety age where advances were continuously made, and these advances are significant. Like they do have a role on the internet, or they have a role in the development of robotics, autonomous vehicles, software that we use in our mobile phones today. So these are advances that are not negligible at all, but that have not delivered on the promise of a wholesale revolution that was envisioned in the 1950s and 60s, to the situation where we are today. And basically what I want to do in the next few minutes is to look a little bit deeper into this, let's call it sobriety age, and some of the main achievements that happened there, and see how they worked, and see them in a little bit of more of detail. And I will focus on the case of chess because it's a nice example that will help us later to see what the difference between that moment then in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s is different from now, where we are probably living through a new age of hype around artificial intelligence, also a new age of achievements, and what that means, what things are similar, what things are different, and very precisely what the technological differences are. So to be a little bit more precise, I want to focus on how intelligent was AI, was artificial intelligence back then. By back then meaning, for example, the 90s. And let's look at the case of chess and this achievement where in 1997, this computer here, huge computer called Deep Blue, bet Gary Kasparov, who was at the moment world chess champion, human world chess champion, and who is one of the best chess players that has ever lived by many accounts. This presentation drinks from many sources. One of them is the excellent page from Curry Wynn from the University of North Carolina. So really go and have a look at that if you're interested. Basically, Deep Blue used an algorithm, this computer that was very good at playing chess, used an algorithm called Minimax. And I will paste the link later, but Minimax, here we have, for example, the page from Elaine Rich, which we have also used extensively in this presentation. Go have a look at that too. But the Minimax algorithm is an algorithm that basically takes into account for any game or any situation a starting position, and then considers what one of the two players can do, and then after considering each possible motion, then it considers what the other player can do. And the point is that the first player wants to minimize or maximize the evaluation function, so some metric that tells me whether I'm winning or I'm losing, and the other player wants to do the other way. So if this guy wants to minimize the function, this one wants to annoy him and maximize it, and the other way around. If I'm trying to maximize, my opponent is trying to minimize my function. So the Minimax algorithm works by considering all possible motions by everyone and trying to find which one is better for my interest now. what is the thing that I do that no matter what my opponent does in the next movements, I'm still going to be okay. My best value for the function will be higher. Okay, so this is essentially how Deep Blue worked and how Deep Blue managed to beat Gary Kasparov in 1997. By the way, probably important to say too that Gary Kasparov did manage to beat Deep Blue in 1996. So this was not straightforward slam dunk for the computers. It was a hard-fought affair. And even when Gary Kasparov was defeated, he was not routed by any means. He was defeated 3.5 to 2.5. How did this algorithm that finally achieved this feat of playing chess better than any human, or the human world champion, how did that work? I have been mentioning that the minimax algorithm considers all motions and considers all possible values of this evaluation function. What is that? It's a function that gives a value to each position of my board in a game and tells me if that's good or bad and how good or bad it is. In chess, in the case of Deep Blue, this was a very complicated function that considered a number of pieces in the board, if they could move very far or not so much, who controlled the center of the board, the position of the king. All of these things require very deep knowledge of the problem at hand, in this case of the game of chess. And in order to beat Gary Kasparov, the guys at IBM, who was the company that created Deep Blue, needed a huge team of people who were very good at computer programming and artificial intelligence and also at chess. So they needed a huge team with vast knowledge of chess, artificial intelligence, programming, and computers in general. So this version of artificial intelligence required lots and lots and lots of very specialized knowledge. As I have been seeing, the min-max algorithm considers what you can do, and then for each move that you do, what the opponent can do. Here you have the link to the video that I showed you a photogram of before, and I recommend that you have a look at it. And the point is, how far in the tree can you search? How many moves can you check in advance? And the point is that, of course, this is an exponential function. This number of moves grows exponentially. Even for chess that has, let's say, only between air quotes 25 to 40 possible moves at every point, after only 3 moves, I'm in the 15,000. And after 10 moves, I'm higher than the age of the universe. So these numbers grow very, very, very very far, very high, very far. I think I remember hearing that good chess grandmasters can think about 7 to 8 moves ahead of their opponent. So these people are considering in their heads huge number of possible moves. The way that this was tackled with Deep Blue was to use specialized chess chips that computed all of those possible movements. For each of them, they used that very, very knowledge-heavy evaluation function, and then they computed all of those possible moves using these chess chips. And basically, by brute force, by considering this huge search space of possible moves, by having a very good evaluation function, they were able to muscle the mental strength of the human chess champion. They were able to program the subtleties of chess in a way that computers could understand and could outperform humans with. So my point here is that this was an incredible feat of artificial intelligence and engineering, but the two main things were, first one, they needed to know a lot about chess to be able to create a very, very good evaluation function, and that one had lots of rules. I have mentioned a few, but there were many more that had to be coded by hand. That was very difficult and knowledge intensive. And then they needed lots and lots of specialized hardware chips to actually be able to compute that function for as many possible positions as possible, so that they could outthink Gary Kasparov in this case. I hope that you see that basically what they were doing is carpet bombing the search space. They defined an evaluation function that worked by thinking very hard about that, and that thinking was not artificial intelligence, that was people thinking. And then they used the computation power of computers that they designed specifically for this challenge to apply that human-defined evaluation function to lots and lots of possible configurations of the word. So, still a huge feat, but nothing that appears, let's say, magic to our understanding. It was just a matter of considering many different boards and applying that evaluation function. That was possible because chess is, and giant air quotes here, easy. The rules are simple. The branching factor, this how many moves are possible at every possible position of the board, is relatively low, and the evaluation function could be defined using this very deep knowledge of the game of chess. Here I have written fairly simple evaluation functions. I don't think that's fair, but let's say doable, programmable evaluation functions for the board. There are other games that are not easy at all. So to sum up this part, artificial intelligence in the 80s and 90s was able to gain many feats and to achieve the solution of many challenges and to advance human knowledge in many different ways, but by doing these kind of things that are natural, more or less natural extensions of the things that we do. When we play a game, we probably look at possible scenarios and try to compute some of them and see what would happen. And we don't have the computing power to look at trillions of them at every moment. But these people were basically telling computers to do things that were a natural extension of what humans already do. This is not always possible. For example, the game of Go is not easy. It's a game that's highly positional, where it's not easy to evaluate the board. So this game was not solved until much later, and this was not solved. It was not possible to create a computer that played better than humans until we got deep learning a few years back, and we will speak about this on time.